it's just come time where I have to explain this in a true educational fashion so that everybody can understand what the social contract means. So what is the social contract? Why do we have it? What does it do? Where did it come from? Why does it exist? And so the social contract, you could also just go ahead and you could call the social contract the rule of law. Okay, so we've been talking about this last week about what the rule of law is, about what the social contract is. And so I want to just get into some very intricate detail of understanding the reason why these things exist and how they exist. People will tell you, oh, the social contract, you know what, when I was born into that, when I was a baby, did I sign that? Did I sign the social contract when I was born? Is that what happened? The answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes. And let me explain it. I'm gonna put these things in a bigger contextual form so you can understand the knowledge, and then I'm gonna lay out exactly how we got to have a social contract. Okay, because this is a very big part of understanding, of learning. So the most important thing that you have to try to encompass in your mind is that all around the world, it doesn't matter which country you go to, from Russia to Nigeria to Africa, any country in Africa, any country in Europe, any country in Asia, they're all gonna have a social contract. And what is a social contract? The social contract are the laws of that country. And you have to follow those laws of that country, or one of two things is very likely to happen to you. The first one is you're going to end up in a dungeon. There's the first thing that happens if you don't follow the rule of law, whichever country you're in. Vietnam has a social contract. Russia has a social contract. Canada has a social contract. Every country in the world has a social contract. Not a single country does not. There's some countries on the Ivory Coast, and as you guys may remember from Thomas Jefferson's wars with the Barbary Coast, when he was president in the very early 19th century, we went to war with the Barbary Coast because they continued to attack off of the shores. So now, the second thing that will happen to you is that you'll die. If you don't follow the social contract of the country of which you live in, they'll either put you in a dungeon or you'll die. Now, the third option here in the United States of America, and only in the United States of America, is you can be what's called a sovereign citizen. Now, what will happen if you choose to be a sovereign citizen is they will strip away your ability to buy things. They'll take away your social security number. They'll do all kinds of things if you say that you're a sovereign citizen and you don't want to adhere to the rule of law. This happens to people who say that I'm not going to follow the rule of law. Okay, now, when did you sign up for the social contract? When did you say, I sign up to live under a set of rule of laws that I never wrote, that my dad never wrote? You know, how come, you know, we have this rule of law when I'm born? I didn't ask to be a part of this. I'm not signing up for this. Well, it's really simple. Whichever country, let's make it easy. Let's make it states, right? So in the state of California, right? In California, they have the California Revised Code. Okay? And so if you're born in the great state of California, they have a rule of law right here that if you don't adhere to that rule of law in the great state of California, you either go into the dungeon or they kill you, or you live like a bum. Okay? So that's just the way it is. I mean, it's just that simple. If you don't want to adhere to the rule of law, then you're not going to have a very good life in almost any country, even individual state republics, right? Each state is okay. So now, how did we get to this rule of law? Why do we have this horrible thing called rule of law? Or is it horrible? Why do we have a social contract? What is it? Where did it come from? And how come I'm a part of it even though I didn't sign up for it? So now this is where we're going to get into the philosophies of America, the founding philosophies and idea of how the country was formed, how America was formed. So in 1651, and I know this is a long time ago, but this is the very nature of understanding why all countries have the rule of law. And here it is. Let me take a thing here, and I'm just going to strap this sucker closed. I'm just going to take this right here, and I'm just going to strap this drawer right here closed. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here. I'm going to pull this bad chicken tight. There it is. Is that going to work? Maybe. Ah, it did work. Okay, kind of worked. Kind of didn't too. Whatever. Hopefully it works. Let me see. Come on, baby. There it is. Okie dokie. I guess it didn't work. I tried though. It'll work right there. So it'll stick out right there. It'll be that far away. Okay, so how did this all go down? How did we get to this social contract thing that everybody doesn't really understand that well, even though we all live under the rule of law? So in 1651, a guy named Thomas Hobbes, this guy right here, his name is Hobbes. And if you want to make this fancy, this is going to be called Hobbesian theory. Thomas Hobbes, he wrote a book in 1651 called Leviathan. They've made several movies called Leviathan. They've made several productions called Leviathan. And so you say to yourself, so what does Leviathan actually say? Why is Hobbes' social contract so imperative in understanding all social contracts? It's very simple. It's because Hobbes wrote something called The Nature of Man. Okay, so The Nature of Man is written by Hobbes, and what exactly does it say? What does The Nature of Man say? It says that man is this selfish, brute, violent, right? And so this is what the nature of man, exactly what he says. This is how he defines man. And so when you read this, you say to yourself, so if this is the nature of man, if these things right here, and I gave an example earlier when I was talking to a guy on the phone and explaining to him what the social contract means, and he said to me, well, what do you mean? I didn't sign up for that. And I said, you didn't have to sign up for it. Because the way Thomas Hobbes sees it, and I've explained this a few times, but the way Hobbes explains this is that man is this horrible person that the only reason you ever do anything is 100% for you. You only do things for yourself. You're not a good dad because you love your daughter. You're a good dad because you don't want people to think you're a bad dad. You are a good father to your daughter because you want the love she's going to give you. The love your daughter is going to give you is why you are loving and kind and gentle to your daughter so that you get something back from it. This is Hobbes' philosophy on how man is. This is how Hobbes sees man. Now, Hobbes' book is Rentap. I don't know if you've read it, but maybe you have. I don't know the answers. Maybe you read it. Doesn't sound like it, but maybe you did. So now understand this, that this is the idea of the basis of the social contract, that man is all these things. And so if we don't have a social contract, then what will happen is man will kill each other. And what Hobbes called that And this is very important. If you've never heard this phrase before, this is a very common phrase when you're talking about structure of culture. And this is what it's called. It's called Bellium Omnium Contra Omnis. Ominus. Now, I may have not spelled it perfectly, but this is how Thomas Hobbes saw man, is that we were this horribly selfish person, and then we have Bellium Omnia Contra Omnis. And what that means is that if we don't live under a rule of law, that man will kill each other. And so this is called Bellium Omnia Contra Omnis, a war of all men against all men. And that's what that means. Bellium omnium contra omnis means a war of all men against all men. Okay, now Thomas Hobbes is going to live before John Locke. He's going to write Leviathan, I think, in his 60s or 70s. So he had lived a long life. So now you understand that the basis of the social contract that are going to be created as we go down the line are going to be based on the idea that if we don't have rule of law, that man is this selfish beast that will go to war with all men against all men. And so I asked the question, on a volunteerist system or an anarchist system, you start to get the question of this. If your son or daughter or brother or sister is hit by a car, and then that person either has a broken leg or they die, then you're going to have a war of all men against all men because there's not a rule of law. And what do we look for when we're talking about rule of law? We talk about justice. The rule of law is intended to protect your rights and uphold justice. That's what the rule of law is intended to do. Whether or not our social contract has lived up to these expectations is another question, but it is not exactly correct. And I'm going to get into that now. Okay, so now we know that Leviathan is going to create the natural man, and that he's a selfish Brutus beast. And if we don't have rule of law, that will have Bellium Omnium Contra Omnis, which means a war of all men against all men. Now, what was Hobbes' idea of the social contract? Number one, that government is the sovereign, that the government has all the power and the people don't. So this is basic what Thomas Hobbes thought. So he's one of the Enlightenment thinkers that our Constitution is not based on, but you have to understand this is the very basis of understanding the social contract. Okay. So now another guy is going to come along who you've heard of before, okay? And what's his name? His name is going to be John Locke. And what is John Locke going to teach exactly? John Locke is also going to write a social contract. Now, if you want to get fancy, you can call it Lockean theory. That's what a lot of scholars will call it. They'll call it Lockean theory. It's just a fancy way to say Locke's philosophy, okay? And he's going to write a couple of books. He's going to write a book that he's actually going to write. He's actually going to write 2 treatises of government. And he's also going to write another book called Essays in Understanding Humanity. Okay, now I put them in this order, 2 treatises of government and Essays in Understanding Humanity, but the truth is, just so you know, he wrote 2 treatises of government, and he actually wrote 2 treatises in government in 1683. That's when he wrote the book. He didn't publish the book until 1690. And the reason why he didn't do it was because he knew how far behind mankind was in their intelligence and their knowledge base. John Locke was a genius, beyond smart. And he knew that if he published 2 treatises of government right away, that people wouldn't understand it, that it was too complicated for the average man. And so after he finished writing it, from 1683 until 1688, he wrote another book called Essays in Understanding Humanity. That's what he wrote. And he published this book in 1689. Now, this is very important in understanding. Very important, because he had wrote 2 treatises of government already, but then put it on hold for almost a decade so that he could write Essays in Understanding Humanity, or Essays in Humanity, or however the exact title is. Okay, it is what it is. And he publishes this book in 1689, so people have a year to read it before he's going to publish 2 treatises of government. And what's so important about 2 treatises of government? What is that going to lay out the foundation of? That all men are created equal, and that you have 3 basic rights of understanding that you're born with. Right? And John Locke is not real popular with the kings and the princes and the monarchs because he's preaching that all men are created equal. You can't take that guy's wife because he has as much right to have the wife as you want. Previously, the kings just saw a beautiful babe and just took her out of the audience and said, she's mine. And so what 2 treatises of government is going to establish is natural law. You guys have heard me talk about natural law so many times. And so you say, well, what's the big deal about natural law? Natural law is the basis of American constitutional law. You know, and I can go into detail on this, but I'm just going to try to do the highlights here. So natural law is going to determine that man is born with 3 basic principles, three foundations of your rights. And what are those exactly? That you have the right to liberty, you have the right to property, Property, sorry about it. And you have the right to life. You have the basic right to live. So these are the 3 critical foundations of natural law that John Locke is going to project and say that you have these rights to natural law. You have the right to be alive, you have the right to property, and you have a right to be free. And the reason why liberty is first is because without liberty, you can't have life. Without liberty, you can't have property. You see? So this is the very essence of understanding humanity. Okay, or at least American humanity as far as we know. So now, liberty, property, and life, liberty, and property, you've heard of this before. And so let's erase this and put Hobbes' idea back up here. So now we know John Locke is going to write these 2 books. He's going to come up with natural law that every man is entitled to life, liberty, and property. So this is very basic stuff here. Very basic. So now what do we have? Let's lay out what we've learned so far and try to keep up with the philosophy of why rule of law is in every country in America. And just real quick, if you're Christian, then what's the first social contract that you agreed to? Any Christians in here? How many people are Christian? How many people are Christian? How many people take Christ as their Savior? Write it right there. Put, yes, I'm a Christian. I take Christ as my Savior. Write it right there. I can see your comments up here. Are you a Christian? Do you take Christ as your Savior? Put it right there. Let me see. Yes, I'm a Christian. No, I'm not a Christian. Yes, I'm a Christian. No, I'm not a Christian. So if you take Christ as your Savior, then your first social contract, the first global social contract is what? What is the first global social contract? So social contract is equal to the term rule of law. The social contract means rule of law. And in Christianity, What is the very first social contract that you agreed to by being a Christian? What is the very first social contract that you said, yes, I agree to that? What is it? What is it? What is it? Okay, that's right. You got it right there. The 10 Commandments. Okay, so now you have the 10 Commandments that you're a Christian. You agree, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, honor thy mother and father, do unto others as you would have do unto you. You have, thou shalt not have any false gods before me. And so you have these 10 Commandments right here that you agreed as a Christian that you would follow the rule of law, which are the 10 Commandments. You agreed to that when you said, I take Jesus Christ as my Savior. You agreed to live under the rule of law. You agreed. Am I wrong? Am I incorrect? Okay. Now, when you take the 10 Commandments and you take Hobbes' idea of bellium omnium contra omnes, which means a war of all men against all men, well, that's not going to happen if you treat your neighbor as you would want to be treated. Do you see? Do you follow? So this is your first understanding of how Hobbes' idea that men are a brutish beast, unless, of course, you're Christian or Protestant back then, I guess it would be. So now you understand. Okay, so now let's move on. Okay. So now a couple things are going to happen here. You're going to have two more huge influencers who are going to come in and change the game for America. Because we have Locke's book. We have Locke's book, Two Treatises of Government. We'll just call it Two Treaties. And this book is going to come out in 1690. And then what's going to happen is in Montesquieu's book called The Spirit of Laws. Now, what's more important, the spirit of law or the letter of the law? And when a law is written, what's more important, the spirit of the law or the letter of the law? The answer is the spirit of the law is more important than the letter of the law. Exactly. So this book is going to come out in 1648, published in English in 1650. Okay? And what this is going to talk about, Montesquieu's books, is going to be checks and balances on power. That's what Montesquieu's book's all about. And what was Montesquieu's number one thing? What was the biggest thing he was about? Montesquieu was about what? Abolishing slavery. That's what he was about. Charles de Montesquieu was about abolishing slavery. That's his whole thing. And so he created a checks and balances system that we see today in the judicial and then the congressional and then the executive branches of government. So we have these two philosophies, and look at the year. Look at the year. Oh, I wrote the wrong year. Sorry about that. If you ever make a mistake on camera, then people consider it that you have you've ruined everything. If you ever write the wrong year down, then you're the worst person ever. So anyway, 1748, 1750, which is coming really close to what year? 1776. Okay. So now you're going to have Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Okay. So has everybody heard of Jean-Jacques Rousseau before? Have you everybody heard of him before? Jean-Jacques Rousseau, I've talked about him before. And he's going to write a book. He's going to write a book that is going to come out, and it's going to come out in 1762, and his book is going to be called The Social Contract. Okay? So Jean-Jacques Rousseau's book, The Social Contract, this book is going to come out in 1762. Okay, so now you have the spirit of laws coming out in 1748, 1750, the social contract coming out in 1762, two treaties of government in 1690. All of these books are going to have major influence on American politics, American government. These are the philosophies that are going to define the American Constitution and the American Bill of Rights. Now, this is going to create our social contract here, and it's not going to be based on Hobbes' social contract. It's going to be based on Rousseau's social contract. And Rousseau's social contract says the opposite of Hobbes, that man is a wonderful beast, that man is an amazing creature on earth, that we are empathetic and loving, and that the people are the sovereign, or also called, the sovereign is also called the power. Let me turn my AC on, I'm burning up. Okay, so now, here's what you guys, everybody has to understand. If you say you're a volunteerist, or you say you're an anarchist, right? The reason why those ideas simply don't work, and people can't really argue for them, is this, because why? Now, are we clear on those things? I don't want to go too fast. I want to go nice and slow. I want to go nice and slow so everybody understands. Okay, so let's write it up here. Bellium omnium contra omnes, okay? That's a war of all men against all men. Bellium omnium contra omnes, okay? So what this means right here is that there's going to be a war of all men against all men. Unless, and who believed this? Who believed this? Who believed in this term? Who said that this is true? Who said that this was true? Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, and Montesquieu. All of them said that without rule of law, without a social contract, that men would kill each other in mass numbers, that men would kill each other without a, so what is a social contract? The social contract is essentially an agreement that we all live under the same laws. That's what a social contract is, just like the Bible, like I talked about earlier. And if we don't all have a social contract that we all agree to live under a set of laws that we all don't agree to this, then what happens is bellium omnia contra omnes. Your brother gets hit by a car, you want justice. Everybody wants that one word, justice. And if you don't get it, you'll kill for it. If someone rapes your wife or your girlfriend or your husband or brother, you'll do anything to get justice. Anything to get justice. And that's the whole point. When we all have a contract that we all agree to live under a set of rules of laws, then if your brother, cousin, whatever gets hurt, then we all agree that there's going to be consequences for those actions in our social contract. We all agree that we're going to get justice and we're not going to go kill that guy and his family. We're going to follow the agreement and we're all going to try to get justice for what happened here. You see? Do you see? This is the basic understanding. And I'm going to go with these guys being smarter than a bunch of people saying, I'm going to be a volunteerist. I'm going to be an anarchist. Sorry, guys. Show me a country Show me a single country around the world. Show me one. I challenge all of you, every person here. Show me one country, even one country around the globe. I'm not going to draw a globe. That's a globe. Whatever. It looks like a funny basketball. Whatever. So show me one country. Pick it out and say, hey, Chille, this country right here, they don't live under a social contract. Show me one country. Show me a single country. Show me one country on the globe that doesn't have rule of law as a basic standard. That there's going to be a social contract that the men agree that to get justice, we have to have the rule of law. There's not a single country on earth that doesn't have rule of law. I mean, and if you want to go over to some of the third world countries, then you're going to find countries that don't have a social contract, where if you get killed, nothing ever is going to happen. Every country in the world has a social contract, every one of them. There's not a single country in the world that doesn't, not one. And so you start to say to yourself, well, what happens if we don't have a social contract that all men don't agree to the rule of law? What if we say, you know what? We're not going to have a social contract. We're not going to have that agreement. We're not going to have it. Chaos. That's what you get. Without a set of written rules that are law, you get chaos. And I haven't found anybody who can debate, that can argue that communism or socialism or volunteerism, they all end up in a war of all men. Because what happens is, if you go and your brother or whoever gets hit by a car and you want to get justice for that, then what you're going to end up with is a chaotic system, because you don't want any rulers. Nobody's in charge. Someone raped your girlfriend, but nobody's in charge. Someone killed your father, but there's nobody in charge. There's no authority. There's no authority. And so without a system of laws, there's no authority. And when you get, I know Beastmaster's probably going crazy because I listed socialism and communism, but in socialism and communism, then the government is the arbitrator. The government will decide. The government will be the rule of law. The government will decide what the rule of law is. And that could be arbitrary to however that government official is feeling. Without somebody being in charge, you're going to have chaos. You're going to have absolute chaos. There's no way to square it. And, where the lovely Beastmaster and I disagree is on socialism. Which was it? Were you for communism or socialism? I can't remember. But it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm just trying to say. Would love to debate with you, Beastmaster. I'll send you a link and we can talk about it publicly. So these guys here, the books that I read are the books that these guys right here wrote. So I am limited by my knowledge base. I'm limited by my knowledge because these are the only books that I've read as far as, I've read Kant, I've read some Marxism, but what I'm saying is if you are able to digest the same books that I did, then you and I would be able to have an intelligent conversation about the rule of law. But currently, people keep on talking about volunteerism or anarchism. I don't want anybody to be a leader over me. Okay, well, if you get a gallon of milk and your milk is spoiled and it kills your daughter, and this is going back to Al Capone, by the way, if you don't know the story, you can look it up yourself. Al Capone, rotten milk, put that into your search engine and you'll know what I'm talking about. And because there was no, so let me just write this down so you guys can look it up yourselves. So when you get to Al Capone, right? And I'm pretty sure it was Al Capone. I think that was the correct gangster. So when you get to Al Capone, kind of a funny P there, huh? When you get to when you think of Al Capone, do you think of rule of law? when you get to the name Al Capone, and everybody's heard the name Al Capone, he was an alcohol bootlegger. When you get to Al Capone, why would you associate Al Capone with rule of law? Why would you do that? Can anybody answer that? Can anybody tell me why you would think of rule of law when you think about Al Capone? And I'll give you a big clue here. Milk. So why do you think of Al Capone and you think of rule of law? Because I'll tell you why. When you think of Al Capone, there were no laws based on the pasteurization of milk. Did you know that? There were no laws. Okay? So what did Capone do when his daughter, I can't remember if his daughter, his niece, or granddaughter, when his granddaughter or niece got very deathly ill from drinking non-pasteurized milk, Capone made sure that laws were created based on the pasteurization of milk. Did you know that? Why would Al Capone be pushing the rule of law when he was a gangster? He killed people. Because his daughter got so sick, it could have been his granddaughter, could have been his niece, I can't remember exactly, but his daughter got sick drinking milk. And so what happened was, Capone said, we got to get some laws in place regarding pasteurization of milk. You see? So when you talk about people who say, I don't want anybody to rule over me. Okay, fine. Let's take that example. Let's take the example of people saying, I don't want anybody to rule over me. Okay. So what happens is, instead of Capone's daughter, it's your daughter. Your daughter's the one. Okay? So your kid drinks milk, and your kid gets deathly sick. Your kid gets deathly ill. Okay? And so now, what do? Do you manufacture milk? You go to the guy who's the producer of the milk, and you say, hey, man, you put out a gallon of milk, and my kid got deathly sick from your milk. Your milk got my kid sick. And the producer says what? Nobody rules over me. Nobody rules over me. Okay? So now what happens? Nobody's in charge. The lights are on, but nobody's home at the wheel. So this is where what we're supposed to have in an actual state based on rule of law, not a tyrannical system. What we're supposed to have here is we're supposed to have government. Government is supposed to step in right here, and then government goes to the milk producer, and the government tells the milk producer, hey, you have to pasteurize the milk. And if you don't pasteurize the milk, then we're going to shut you down by force if necessary. Now, you may not want anybody ruling over you, but do you want your kid dying from the bacteria in milk? Do you want your kid dying? Your kid's going to die if he drinks that milk too much. Okay? And I know the vegans are going to go crazy. You're drinking a cow's milk. I see it here, but whatever. So this is just how our country's created. I still have milk and cookies. It's never going to change. Sorry, I'm in my 40s. I'm not going to go vegan. It is what it is. Okay, so now who's going to tell the milk producer? Let me ask you a question, and you guys can answer, and I'll end with this because now you understand how it works a little bit. So who's going to tell the producer of milk that they have to make it pasteurized or your kid's going to get sick and die? Who's going to tell them? Who's going to tell them? Are you going to tell them? Because if you go to the milk producer, what's going to happen? You made my kids sick. You didn't pasteurize the milk. I guess this is the global medication symbol too. But the whole point is goat milk, buffalo milk, same thing. If it's not pasteurized and it gets shipped to a store, then your kid, instead of Capone's kid, might get sick and die. Right? Let's take another example. In the I think it was, I'm going to mess up the year. Was it 1962? Gosh dang it. The Black Panthers. The Black Panthers instituted, what they did is, they instituted in the schools a morning breakfast. Did you know that? The Black Panthers, they're the ones who created a fund to put morning breakfast in the schools for kids. Did you know that? I know this because I was raised dirt poor and I got one of those little free tickets and I went and I had my breakfast in the morning because we didn't have any money. It was 1969. Thank you so much, Great Lake. I appreciate that, brother. Good to see you. So the Black Panthers, they raised the money and they got the breakfast program going in schools. I think was it in California, Great Lake Audits? Is that where it was? I think it was in California. It could have been in Illinois. I'm not sure. So now what happened was when the morning breakfast became so popular because there were so many kids who were going to school hungry. And if you don't have a breakfast in your stomach, then you're going to have a hard time learning when you're a kid and you're hungry. And so they instituted this morning breakfast program. Was it Oakland? I thought it was California. And so then what happened from here is the morning breakfast program became so popular with black kids and white kids that pretty soon parents like your mom, your dad, people, they went to this thing called government. And what government said is, we hate that black guys came up with it, but we're going to institute it anyway. And so after a year of lobbying, the government finally stepped in and said, let's institute a school lunch, a breakfast program for every school in America, because half of the kids in America are going to school hungry. And so this is an example of how the social contract worked in favor of the people, but eventually had to be instituted by government. And now what are they doing today in schools? Today they're doing the most atrocious thing ever. They are they're suspending your grades. They're suspending your report card, not advancing you if you haven't paid for food. We have enough money to give $40 billion to war industry. That money doesn't go to Ukraine. It goes to Lockheed Martin and to all the manufacturers of arms. But this is an example of the social contract working for the people, where the people instituted a program. The morning breakfast program became incredibly popular, but all different races, colors, and creeds endorsed it, and then they pushed for government to institute it. And who had the authority to do that? Government does. The government has the authority to do that. This is how the social contract is supposed to work. This is how it's supposed to work. So, when people start to talk to me about different social structures, I said, well, have you read Leviathan yet? Have you read 2 Treaties of Government? Have you read the social contract? Have you read The Spirit of Laws? Have you read those books? You can listen to them on YouTube for free through a LibreBox Productions. I know it because I've heard it so many times. You totally screwed that up? Okay, that's cool. That's cool. You know, perhaps I did totally screw that up, but I presented something. So feel free to show me your video when you correct me. And I'd like to see it. I'll make sure I take a look at that when you produce something other than just throw peanuts from the peanut gallery. So when you're ready to produce something. So if you haven't read these philosophers' books, then you don't understand the true foundation of America. You also want to throw in the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers. Okay. Okay. Dokie dokie. Okay. These are how things are supposed to work. I know that it's not going this way. I'm aware. I'm aware that things are not going how they're supposed to go. I know that. I know that we're being cheated, that the people are being railroaded. You know, they want to put me in jail in Ironton for a hearing. A non-violent person, they want to put me in jail. So it's not going how it's supposed to go. It's not going how it's supposed to go. We're not living under rule of law. We're living under tyranny. I hope it's not. I hope there's no revolution. I hope we don't go to violence. Because if we go to violence, I leave. I'm leaving this country. I'm not going to go to war against my own countrymen. I'm not going to do it. I'm not interested in killing anybody. I'm not interested in being in war. I'm not interested in death. I'm not interested in a revolution. I'm not interested in anything that has to do with violence. I'm not interested. You know, I'm just not interested. I think men fighting is a healthy thing as long as it's done in the proper way. But I think trying to implement. So now, as you guys can see, and I don't want to lose myself here, the philosophies of our country are based on the books of Enlightenment thinkers during the Enlightenment era of the world. So this is what our country is based on. So it's not that simple to say, oh, let's just go to a volunteerist society when there's not a country in the world. There's not a single country in the entire world. There's not even one. Not even one. Not even one. I mean, what are those countries off the Barbary Coast? Anybody? What are the countries off the Barbary Coast? I'm the captain now. I'm the captain now. Do you remember that movie? Where was that guy from? Where was that guy from? Who wrote that? I mean, capitalism, the way in its current form is not going so great, but we can tweak it. We can make it better. So around the entire globe, there's not even one country that doesn't have a social contract. Maybe you could find an island country, an island somewhere. Maybe you could find an island country that there's no rule of law. But the social contract is rule of law. I mean, if you go to Honduras or somewhere like that, that's a country that is without rule of law. And you don't want to live there because all the people from the Honduras are coming here. They're all coming here because we have rule of law. We are not, you're exactly right, Rentap. We are not a country that is currently living under the rule of law. We're a country that no, I don't think I'm going to Excel master. I don't think I'm going to explain anything at all. I think I already did earlier. I already made it pretty clear. So watch the video I made earlier, Excel master, whatever the XZL master. You're welcome to watch what I talked about there earlier. Okay, so it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning, I think, and I have not had any food today. I worked out already today. Yeah, the rule of law here has been totally bastardized. It's one nation under a groove. One nation under a groove. I don't know the song, it's so good. Okay, anyway, listen. So there it is. There's my explanation so you guys understand, you know, what the explanation of the rule of law actually is, so that you don't get lost in this idea of people who didn't, you know, and by the way, I talked to someone earlier tonight and we talked on the phone and I said, okay, so which of the books have you read? Which of these books have you read? And they said 0. I said, well, then how do you understand the philosophy of rule of law? If you haven't read those books, then We don't have the same knowledge base, my friend. We don't have the same knowledge base. Okay. Okay. Yeah, T-Roy remembers when I used to teach on TikTok and all I did was teach. That's all I did was teach the history of law, the origins of law. T-Roy was there. Actually, Preachy, my hair dye's not, my hair's not dyed. There's no dye in my hair, brother. I do like to dye my hair from time to time, but there's currently no dye in my hair. This is El Natural. But you're welcome to take another shot at me if you'd like, if that's what makes you feel good about yourself. It doesn't make me feel good about myself. Anyway. All right. Yeah, the old silverback. I'm the old silverback over here. The old silverback. All right. Yeah, watch the beginning of that video, ZXL Master, and then you'll understand. Yeah, I have earned the grays, that's for sure. There's lots of weird things going on in the world. The fact that you can't debate someone who doesn't know the subject. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I tried to debate someone about it and they just didn't know the subject matter. You know. Oh, do you remember that, Great Lakes? Were you there when I was on TikTok? Were you there? Hey, Beast, we need to have a friendly, good faith debate. Yeah, I would love to, Beastmaster. I still have your number. I will give you a call and I will send you a StreamYard and we'll have a debate. We will have a debate. Is that right, Aaron? I didn't know that. I'm so honored that we get to work together now. Great Lakes Audits and I are working together on his first beating his Fatty J, I would love to have you on. I'll do a live stream and I'll have just one person come on after the next person so that someone can knock me down a peg. You know, because the hatred for me just invigorates me. But if you can actually beat me in a debate, you might actually make me shake my head and go, "Dang it." You know, but the hatred for me just empowers me. All the hatred just love it. You know, I love the fight. It's my favorite thing is the fight. I love it. Makes me, as you can see, I was up early today. I guess I slept till 10 or 11. I got some good sleep, which was great. It was great to get some good sleep, I'll tell you. I am working my booty off. So anyway, listen, I appreciate you guys, man. Thanks for coming by. If I didn't answer any of your questions, don't hesitate to send me an email to DeleteLawZ@gmail.com. Quit hogging the blunt, Beast. Yeah, I'm ready. I wish I could smoke one, man, but I'm on the road. I don't have any weed. I'm still in Columbus, so if there's anybody around here that's a 420 advocate in Columbus, please let me know. If there's anybody knows any other auditors or activists out here in oh yeah, and then the thing is, man, just so you guys know, I have been training like a demon. Just, you know, I don't typically show anybody. I don't take my shirt off. I'm kind of past that. Not that I don't have vanity, but I've been training like a demon. I got you. Thank you, Beastmaster. I will look at your number. But I have been training so hard, you have no idea. Because just the fire inside of me is burning. You know, so I'm looking forward to taking out my aggression. That's right, Laura. That's exactly correct. He led in getting dates put on the milk. Now, when you think of Capone, would you think of Capone as someone who's a proponent of the rule of law? Oh, Fake, what are you doing in here, dude? What are you doing in here, brother? You're on the wrong channel, Fake. Go to someone's channel that talks bad about me, brother. You're going to get all the support you want there. You're going to get all the people to join in on you to say how terrible I am for helping people. I'm just horrible for shining the light on people who've been killed by the police. I'm such a terrible person. It takes a real special, horrid person to go and shine the light on the death of people who they don't know. You got to be a really horrible person to do what I do. It's just ridiculous. I got to get some calories, even though I'm going to eat super late. Free Eric Brandt. He should not be in prison for 12 years. So, yeah. Okay, cool. It was his grandniece. Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much for helping me. I really appreciate it. Kant. Yeah, I believe his name was it Kenneth Kant? Was that his name? Was that his full name? It was, no, it was, what was his full name though? It wasn't, his full name was, it's Kant, but what was Kant's first name? It's not K-A-H-N-T. It's K-A-N-T, I think. Is that what it is? Am I spelling it wrong? Immanuel Kant. Yeah, I've read Immanuel Kant. I've read Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant. Yeah, Immanuel had some great ideas, but he also had the idea that the government was the sovereign, not the people. That the government was the power and not the people. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. So, all right, I got to get some food in me. I have had 0 calories today. I got to get some food. I also got to get some water. I'm out of water, so I'm going to get some water too. And by the way, I reserve the right to be incorrect on anything I just said because, you know, sometimes you write down the wrong dates. Sometimes you say the wrong names. I'm not perfect. So, all right, love you guys. Thanks for coming by. And just remember one thing's for sure, no matter what you ever think, we don't stop under any circumstances, under any conditions. We don't back down. We just keep moving forward. Don't stop. Thanks for the support. I appreciate you guys. Love you. And I'll see you guys on